Hello, my name is Elin and I've just started my third year studying for an English degree here at UCL. I hope that you can all hear me right now. If not, just put a little message in the chat box. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about feeling supported at UCL, something that is really close to my heart and that I really wanted to talk about. And just to explain a little bit of the structure of today's event. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit, have my presentation, and then if you think of any questions or if you want me to clarify anything, then just write them down and then you can pop them in the chat box at the end. Also, I'm going to be referring to quite a few links and different things. So at the end, I've collated a list with all those links. So there's no need to try to write them down. You can just take a screenshot of that when I get to that bit. All right, let's begin. So what does it mean to feel supported at UCL? And what are the first few weeks like when you start university? Well, I think this is a question that you're dealing with at the moment, and it will undoubtedly be quite different from when I first began back in 2018. But I do think that there's this newfound sense of independence and choice, and just thinking about the fact that we have over 250 societies at UCL can feel quite overwhelming in choosing what to do. And even if you're not at the moment in a new environment, you're from home, or if you're at UCL, it will still naturally bring up these feelings and it might feel quite overwhelming. And something that I found quite difficult was it felt like the thing I was worried about wasn't enough to seek assistance, to get help. But then really where that came from, I realized, was because I truly didn't know where to go at UCL to get that help. So what I really hope to achieve by the end of today is just help you feel comfortable and confident in making those first steps if and when you need to. So I think the best way to look at this term, because the term support is quite a big term, a broad term, is to break it down. So I'm going to look at 3 different sections today. The first one will be academic support. So that's any support that's related to your studies and the kind of things that you're working with at UCL. And pastoral, so that's anything that you feel is affecting your ability to study at the best that you can. And I also want to talk a little bit about making friends, because I think that's something that kind of goes onto that pastoral bracket. And then I want to finish, but definitely not least, in this idea of special needs help. So under that, I'm going to be looking at the sort of support that UCL can offer you if you suffer from any long-term or short-term conditions, and the sort of things that UCL can put in place to help you and make arrangements. So let's start off by looking at academic support. Now, the first thing that I think about when I think of academic support is the tutorial system. So everybody who's in an undergraduate degree or any taught classes really at UCL will have a tutor. And your tutor really is that go-to person that you go to with any queries you have, and you'll meet with them regularly and they'll go through your work. And I think the most important thing with tutorials was this idea that we could have someone who could reflect over how we grew in terms of academic growth. And I think just asking them about, oh, what can I do to improve on this is a really useful tool. They can also help you with sort of study skills. And something that I would recommend that really helped me feel supported when I began was really just this notebook I had. So I got myself this little notebook and I had it with me in all my lectures. And if there was something that someone brought up and I thought, oh, I wish I knew more than that, I want to do more research on this, then I'd just put it in like a bullet point list. And then I'd go to my tutorial, and outside I'd read this list and then ask my tutor inside, who would then signpost me in the right direction. So just getting yourself that, before a Zoom call and looking over it can be really useful. But don't worry if you forget, that you can just email them afterwards. It's no worries. So something that connects this idea of academic support, but then also pastoral and socially connection, is something that we have, which is a Facebook group chat. So for my degree, English degree, we have a Facebook group chat, and more often than not, actually, the questions are very administrative. So it's like, oh, where is the reading list? Or there's an update and I don't know, where to go with this. And it's a nice place to feel like you're both socializing with people in your year group, but then also engaging with these academic questions. And more often than not, you discover that we actually have the exact same questions in our minds, and we just we're just wondering for when the first person is going to ask that question. So just having a look and seeing if you have that is a nice starting point as well. I wanted to mention also UCL Careers. I think that they're a really nice department in UCL in thinking about, what is my future prospects? What do I want to do when I leave UCL? But also, if you're looking for any part-time jobs while you're at UCL, they're a good place to go because you can book meetings with them and they can look over your CV, for example, or if you've made an application and you'd like someone to look through it and see if they can make any amendments, then you can also book an appointment with UCL Careers. And something that I would definitely recommend that made me feel supported academically with Careers is signing up for something called the weekly vacancy updates. So what that is essentially is every Sunday I receive an email with all the sort of jobs, part-time jobs that are outside of UCL, so not inside of UCL. And I can just have a look at them and look at these applications and think, oh, this is something that interests me. And a nice way to look at that really is to log into what's called My UCL Careers. So you'd log in, I got some information further on about that. And there you can filter your interests. So for me, I've got the arts and humanities, for example. So the jobs that I get in these vacancy updates are really to do with that sector in the industry. Also, something you probably are familiar with at this point is UCL Moodle, and that's the main information point in terms of classes at UCL. So just a little picture here. This is what my Moodle page looks like. We have Shakespeare here in the middle. And I think the nice thing about Moodle is that it sort of made me feel less stressed about the academic side because you have all the important information for your course stored in these places. So rather than having just emails with loads of different information and not having it all collected, you can go to your course page and they'll have the seminar lists and the Zoom links at the moment and everything underneath there. And I think what's really nice as well is that if there's a last minute announcement, so for example, there's a Zoom link that doesn't work or something, just thinking on the spot, then they've make an announcement and that also gets sent to your email address. So you can also get that notification there as well. So I want now to move on a little bit and talk about this idea of pastoral support and where to go. And when I think back about pastoral support and my experiences at UCL, I think first of the mentoring scheme. So every undergraduate student in the first year will be assigned a mentor, and you probably have a mentor at the moment. And that's someone who is further along in your studies. And it's really nice to feel like there's somebody who has been through that experience, who knows what it's like on the other side. And having a mentor who I could go to, and also if something arises when you're studying at UCL and you feel like you need some pastoral support, but you feel like not comfortable at that moment to go to your tutor about it, then you can always just send an email or a WhatsApp message to your mentor and they can arrange a Zoom meeting. And I think that's really nice to have that support because they only choose people who are really friendly and really personable, so you feel comfortable going to them with that. Something also that my mentor did that I think was really useful was he went through past papers with us. So it's easy to, when you start your degree, to have your imagination run wild in those like laborious ideas of what you might have to do at the end of the day. But I just asked him, I said, can we have a look through a past paper and just look at the different sections that we have? And it just made us all feel calm and supported in that sense that we didn't have our imagination run wild and what it could entail. But also looking back at the tutorial system, as I mentioned, the tutors are your go-to person in the department, but they're also there for pastoral means. They're not qualified counsellors, as it were, but they're definitely committed to helping you and signposting you in the direction that you need to go. And if just thinking more broadly about getting support from your department, something that I received when I first started was this list. And on this list, it had all the roles of all the professors and all the staff members on it. And underneath it said, so some of them said, pastoral lead for undergraduates, for example. So they had been designated a role to go to that person for pastoral needs, but also they stressed to us that that doesn't matter at the end of the day, that really it's down to us who we feel most comfortable with and who we feel will understand our query, or who will feel like they'll know where you need to go with that. So really you can choose at the end of the day. And I wanted to briefly mention UCL halls, because I know some of you may be living at UCL halls at the moment, but there's also pastoral measures there as well. So every UCL hall will have a warden, and these wardens will be in charge of the SRAs, and that's the term for student resident advisors. So who they are really are the people who, there's always going to be someone there around the clock, so overnight as well. And you can go to them for basic first aid, if there's any noise disturbances, and it's just nice to know that there's going to be someone there if anything arises while you're at the UCL halls. So now I'm just going to move on a little bit to another sector, another part when I talk about pastoral support, and that's this whole idea of making new friends, which I know is a very scary and daunting thing when you first begin. And I think even now that we're online, I know that can be scary about how do I make these connections. There's still so many virtual events that's going on at UCL that they're trying really hard to think of imaginative and creative ways of engaging through communication. And just thinking about, the 250 societies that I mentioned, I mean, we have Harry Potter Society, which I know is a very popular choice. And we have Music Society, which actually has virtual editions, and English Society as well. Something I want to know in terms of social support and societies is just that some societies are not affiliated with the student union. So if you want to just have a look at your department and see if there's any societies that are departmental based as well, that's another way of seeing what's out there. So I think the main thing with the student union and thinking about this whole broad idea of pastoral support is that once you have classes with students and you get to know your peers and people who study with you, it's really nice to have a group of people who are outside of that, who sort of are part of all the different disciplines at UCL. And just having that other support mechanism as well is just really nice. And something as well, I've got the link later on just for the What's On page for the student union events. So that has, every day it will say what's going on, and you can just sign up for things, last minute for those as well. So I have that link further on in the presentation. So now I'm going to talk about getting support for mental health and disabilities and any long-term or short-term conditions that you may be facing while you're at UCL, and sort of arrangements that the university can put in place to help you with them. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, there are two different sectors to looking at this question, is the disability, mental health and wellbeing team. So if you have a short-term or long-term condition, the first thing that you can do to get support is booking an appointment with an advisor. Now, what that really means is you're going to talk to somebody from this team and first of all show medical evidence of that long-term or short-term condition, and they'll have a look through it, and then they're going to suggest sort of arrangements that the department can put in place to help you and facilitate your learning. The most important thing I want to stress with this point is that the team are really, really friendly, and I'm not just saying that, they're really, really lovely team, and just when it's something really personal to you, it can be quite scary to open up about that, but just knowing that they have a support bubble that makes it feel like you're just talking to a friend or another student just makes it really much easier in that sense. So after they've done that, they're then going to write up something called a SORA. Now, I know it sounds kind of daunting. It's a summary of reasonable adjustment. That's what that stands for. And what that is essentially a bullet point list of the sort of arrangements that the department can put in place to help you and your learning. And first of all, what you do is you would then get that approved. So they'd send it back to you and say, are you comfortable with this information? And then you'd say yes or no, whatever you would like to do. And then they send it to your department on a need to know basis. So also with that is they would not state your condition, they would just write the things that the department would carry out. So it's very practical in that sense. Also something that the disability and mental health team can help you with is they can help for referrals. So they have referrals for mentoring for autism support and learning difficulties as well as mental health mentoring schemes. So you can get in touch with them in regards to that as well. Also, if it's not something that is related to drawing up a SORA for you, or if you need that extra support and you just want a drop-in appointment, they offer drop-in appointments between 10 and 12 and 2 and 4. That's every weekday. So you can always book an appointment with them as well for that. The main thing with being virtual at the moment is that there's a choice in the kind of platform you want to use. So you can either do a phone call with them or a video call, or you can do a Microsoft Teams chat function, which is basically just like texting. So it's up to you which of these you feel most comfortable using. So now this is a bit separate from the Wellbeing team that I just mentioned, is the UCL Counselling services. So what they're there for is they're there to help you if any problems arise when you're studying that regard to emotional, personal, psychological means, and they're a free service for students. So what you would do in that scenario is you could fill out a registration form, which has some questions. You just fill that out online, and then they'd get back to you about having a consultation and discussing what sort of things they can help you with. Usually UCL offers up to 6 appointments with the counselling services. So if it's something that is quite severe, and you can still fill out a registration form and they can still have a consultation, where they then may refer you to an external service if they feel like more help is required for that. Something that's important to stress with counselling services is that they can't help if it's an emergency. And in an emergency, what we always say is to direct you to your nearest hospital. So just being aware of where your nearest hospital is a great starting point. And also, if you're at UCL, it's UCLH, which is just 2 minutes from the main quad, and that's the pillars that you see on the logo of UCL. They also offer support sessions as well and workshops. And something that they do, which is quite nice, is that they can liaise with your GP about certain information as well. So is there a way that we can now, having looked at these 3 different ideas, is there a way that most of these connect when you think of UCL? Well, something that UCL have opened up and started this term is something called Ask UCL. So Ask UCL really is a platform of streamlining inquiries that students make. It's a system that you log in for your UCL email address or for your details. And these are just some of the most frequently answered questions that have come up through Ask UCL. And it's specifically if you have certain questions relating to these, but if you feel like you have a question that's specifically related to careers, then you can always just get in touch with the careers service. But something to stress is that it's not for UCL counselling services. So if you want help for that, you would then get in touch through this registration form that I have the link saved further on. So this is what, if I sign into my Ask UCL account, this is the first thing that comes up. And what you could do is, if you have a certain question, you click on Ask a Question, and then you can type in the sort of question you have, and it will come up with the most frequently answered questions that fall into that sort of bracket. But if you feel like that doesn't specifically answer that question that I had, then you can always log an inquiry. And logging an inquiry is what you would do is you can log an inquiry through Ask a Question. So you first click on Ask a Question, and then you would first of all choose sort of theme it relates to, the sort of department it relates to. Is it UCL Wellbeing Services? And then you would write the question. So basically like sending an email. It's just a way of having the information stored in one place in your account. And then the advisor and people will get back to you on that specific query that you have. So looking back at this, the most useful thing the thing I want to convey really is that there are so many different ways of getting support at UCL, and it's up to you who you feel most comfortable going to. So is it your tutor who you feel you've got to know over the last few weeks and who you feel might understand your perspective and your concern? Or do you want to go to your mentor who who might have been through the same thing or know someone who's done that and can put you in the right direction? Or do you want to reach out on these more, general platforms of Ask UCL or emailing Wellbeing services? So it's up to you and what you choose is the right thing to do. And even if it feels like it's too little, or you might be worried about it, that is actually, even if it's scary, it's actually a really brave thing to do, to reach out when you feel like you need it, because it's just another sign really of that self-development that happens when you start university in doing what's right for you. So now I'm just gonna, you feel free now to take photographs of these slides. I've just collated all the information here so that you have where you need to go. So the first one here, just to reiterate myself, is Ask UCL. And as I mentioned, that's logged in through your UCL details. It's your UCL ID. So that, for example, ZC Lee Joe is mine. That should make sense. It's not your email address, as it were. There's also careers. So that's the careers service there on the left. And I've just attached here for the job boards. So that's looking at certain part-time jobs outside of UCL that are available. You can have a look through that. And this image here is a screenshot of what my UCL careers page looks like. So you can log in, and there you can sort of write in or fill in the sort of interests that you have and what sort of area. And then when you get your vacancy updates, it will be tailored to that, so your specific interests. Here is just a few links for pastoral support. So the first one is finding out a little bit more information about the wardens and the resident advisors, and just looking a little bit into that. And then I've attached the union webpage. That link there goes to the What's On. So that will direct you to all the events that are happening, and you can sign up, last minute to certain things. So it's always nice to feel connected in that sense. And if there's any sort of issues that come up during your studies that regard you to faith or to issues of faith, then you can contact the UCL Interfaith Advisor. And I've just attached her email there below as well. This is the last one on special needs. So as I mentioned, you need your UCL account to log into Ask UCL. But if you don't have that at the moment, you can still contact them on this email address here, the student wellbeing address. And then I've got information about drop-in sessions. So that's sort of shorter appointments, usually up to 20 minutes. So not the usual 1 hour ones that may be put in place if it's for a SORA, for example. And the registration link on the right, that's how you would get help with the counselling services. So that's just the link. And I just thought I'd put in a wellbeing guide as well. So just have one below. I couldn't help myself in this technological age to try and put a few apps together for you as well. They're mainly mental health related, looking at them now. But the first one, Headspace, is really nice for just calming yourself, and it looks at sort of mindfulness techniques, and it has different exercises. And I've also got Fika here, which is a mental health fitness app. And then if you're looking for the sort of free resources that might be available that have been approved by NHS relating to mental health, then you can check out Good Thinking as well. So if you have any questions, you can think of them at the moment. But I just thought I'd mention the upcoming events that we have in the same series. So tomorrow we have one about UCL from home. So what is it like to study from home right now? And then on Friday we have one talking more about the sort of societies that UCL offers as well. So if you have any questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'm going to try my best to answer those. I think something I will mention first of all is about reading lists. I know that's a very broad topic when you think about it, but a good place to start with reading lists is the specific area that it relates to. So if it's relating to, I'm taking my degree, postmodernism, critical theory, then the best place to go is that person that's responsible for that course. So there'll be different course conveners your different degrees and for your different courses in your degree. So if you feel stuck on who to turn to, just have a look at who's the course convener for this particular module, and then you can always just send them a short email, and they'll get back to you on what they can do to help. Perfect. I've got a question here about, I'm a bit shy, where should I go to find friends? That's a really good question. I also was very shy when I first started. Especially now when we're in this virtual age, it can feel quite scary, but I think the fact that there are many different ways of socializing on social media, and something I think that brings out that makes it more scary is the webcam. At least that's what. And there are certain sort of if you attend events at UCL societies, you can switch your webcam off and you can just talk. So if you feel like that's daunting, you can try with that as well. Something that is a very childish thing, but it's something that has re-emerged in my group of friends, is this thing called Club Penguin. I know it's very old, but it's a nice way to, there you can just chat on, like, you know, texting, and it's just having a look at the different things out there that you can socialize with. I think it's probably a good starting point for if you're shy. I think once you find your group of people, then, you know, everything will be absolutely fine. And just, I think what I did when I first started is I actually forced myself to go to social events by myself, because I wanted to see if I could do that. And I think it took away a lot of the fear that I had, because I knew that it was a strong thing to try and do that. So if you see any events and you're interested in them, but you don't know anyone there, then, you know, you'll probably meet someone there, and yeah, it's a nice way to feel connected. Thank you. So, are you a member of any societies? Did you meet friends there? Yes, I did indeed. I'm a member of Music Society. I joined Music Society last year, and it was a nice way. I guess that one's specific because it's relating to music, and we were able to connect through music. But having something that we were all focused and really passionate about made it really easier to talk, because we all had this passion for music. I think you often find that with societies, is that everyone has a passion for that particular thing. So you can always just start by asking about, oh, where did this passion come from, and just going from there. And I still have a good group of friends from that society. And also English Society, that I'm a part of the committee this year, and it's a nice way of having people from the course as well meet, but then people who are not part of English, who don't study English, also who have a passion for literature, and just having a look if there's any book clubs. Like, we're running a book club at the moment, which is a nice way to bring in the academic, bring in the thing you're interested in, but then also be able to make friends through that, as it were. Do you guys want me to go back on any of the slides to get more? I can do that as well if you want me to do that, if you want to take more photographs. What is your favourite thing about UCL? Good question. I think that my favourite thing about UCL is the fact that I haven't been a part of a community, and meeting all the friends that I've met that are from all across the world. And I came from a very, very small school in central London, which had like 60 students. It wasn't very many people. And coming into an environment and coming into UCL was just really nice. It was very different, and feeling that connection, I think, is the thing that I've most enjoyed. But then also having a way of meeting people who are also really interested in certain subjects that I'm interested in, literature, and then being able to have discussions around it, really, with people who are really, really committed to it and really want to look into it. So yeah, and I think also the most important thing is I think for social support and so looking into societies at the moment, you know, now that things have begun, it's probably overwhelming with new classes and Zoom classes and everything with that. But just having a look at the sort of interests you have and the sort of societies that fall into that at this point in the beginning of the year is really nice, because most of the people in those societies are completely new to it as well. And then you'll be able to support each other because you'll both be in that situation. But any more questions relating to anything that you have, really, I can try as well. I think that you know, once we all, I hope that soon we'll all be able to meet and see each other at UCL. But I do think that there are loads of things that UCL are trying to do to help with the virtual format. So I think that just going to these events and trying to connect is a really nice starting point for this term. Let's have a look here. So I've got a question. Do you have any tips for writing planning essays? I'm worried it might be different from A-level writing. That's a good question. Yeah, it is different from A-level writing in that writing for university has more depth. I would say it has more critical perspectives, I'd say, like more reading that you need to do. So looking at, for writing and planning essays, the thing that I usually do is try to read a few critics or a few people who, obviously I'm relating to literature because I study literature, but looking at different perspectives on the issue, I think was a good starting point for me. What's nice with having lectures from different professors is that they all have a different vantage point, a different perspective on that specific thing. So trying to engage with what they're trying to say, what their angle is actually a nice way of realizing, oh, what's my perspective on this? And trying to understand how you take something, how you look at something. Obviously, they will apply the same to, say, subjects that have a more factual status, but it makes you engage and think about what you want to say. What you want to say is the heart of it, I think. And doing mind maps, that sort of thing, can help. I'd say those were usually the main things that I did. But it is different from A-level, but I think you do get used to it when you start to understand the sort of things that are different. But that really it's a question of depth, really, I think, an analysis, really, more about it. Let's see. If you have any more questions. Oh, is it? Do you have, sorry, what is your favourite coffee shop in Bloomsbury? Coffee shop in Bloomsbury, let's have a think. I mean, I went to Planet Organic a few times. I think it's quite expensive, but it was sort of the designated hangout space for English students. I went to a few. I think I think, you know, I heard about different places people had gone, and I thought I'd experiment and see what we had around. So if you're in London, it's always nice to just, also something I just thought about, you can look for thematic, there's a lot of thematic coffee shops or bars in central London, and you can always look at that, you know. It's a nice way to feel like you're connecting with London and London's history, to look for places like that. And do you have any recommendations for study spaces? Yes, so study spaces, if you're at home, so it'll be different for virtual teaching. If you're at home, what I usually do is I have like 2 or 3 different study spaces in my house, because then it feels like I'm traveling somewhere, even though I'm just going down my stairs. So I have, you know, my room and then down at the table. So having different spaces, I think really helps with motivation, rather than just feeling like you're one place all day. But if you're thinking about UCL in particular, the library was the main library, was where I went most of the time to study. And I found, you know, in the evenings, very quiet and very, very nice to study there. But also the student centre. I'd say the student centre have rooms that are really quiet, that are for quiet study. And you can book these pods or these little study spaces as well online. So so there's different choices, really, and just having a look and seeing which one works best for you, really, during the first term. if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I hope that that this presentation has just helped you think about the different things that UCL have, and that it's all an interconnected system, so that you can you streamline your inquiries, and you can go and seek help in all these different ways. And I really hope that we'll all be able to see each other soon. But in the meantime, I really hope that you will have. Oh, I have one question here. Thank you. What do I do when professors ignore emails, or ignore me? With emails, okay, perfect. When they ignore emails, that's a good question. I think there's always a polite way of asking it again. I know it can feel daunting to send another email to a professor about a thing. It might be a case that it's gotten lost in a flurry of emails that they've received. You can always just start off by saying, dear Professor, I was just wondering if you've receiving my email, because then it sort of seems like it might be a technological issue. That could be a starting point. Going to them. You can actually go to your tutor, because your tutor in your department, and ask the same question, and maybe they'll be able to help you, signpost you to someone else who might know the answer if the teacher is not responding. But usually they should be able to help you with that particular thing. Professors ignore emails and are a bit short with you generally. Do you have any advice as to what to do if you get a lower mark on a grade than expected? That's a good question. So if you get your feedback from your tutor and you feel like you worked hard on it and you don't quite, asking more questions about how, what do I do? Or if they notice one part that you think that they've made quite a few comments on, just ask them for their perspective. Ask them to see, what do I think I can do next time? What should I focus more on next time? Is there a different way I can approach this topic? Trying to look at the different angles on it, and also you can talk to your friends about these things. Although if it's an academic thing, you might want to just leave that to your tutor. It could be. I'm just thinking in terms of a literature grade. I think the first point of contact I'd say is your tutor for that. Specifically, and usually when things start, they'll be able to see patterns, or they'll be able to see your academic growth, and they'll be able to highlight those areas that you might need help on. Sometimes they refer you to like a critic or an idea. Like for literature, they say, oh, I think you could put more theoretical knowledge in this. Could you have a look at this book? And so signposting you into these different directions. But it's always okay to ask for clarification on if you say, I don't understand at the moment what I need to improve. You can always email them that as well. Let's see. If there's no more questions, just see. I really hope that your first term at UCL goes really well, and that you feel like you know who to go to when these things arise. And yeah, I hope you have a really nice first week.